Xylar floated above the blue and green planet, a small craft blending perfectly into the thin atmosphere. From this height, the colony below looked peaceful, almost beautiful, with rolling hills and small settlements scattered across the plains. Yet the reports from the Interstellar Council told a different story. Humanity was at war, and Xylar had been ordered to witness it firsthand. He had expected chaos, disorder, and primitive violence. After all, humans had always been described as unpredictable, reckless, and slow to evolve compared to other species in the galaxy. As an observer, his job was simple: record everything, analyze the humans' behavior, and report back. Xylar adjusted the viewing lenses of his craft, focusing on a small settlement where smoke rose from scattered fires. The aliens had intercepted communication suggesting that a skirmish was imminent here. Xylar's 3 hearts pulsed with anticipation. He had watched many wars from afar, but humans were supposed to be simple. They should be easy to predict. The first human he saw was a young soldier, maybe no older than 20 by Xylar's calculations. She crouched behind a ruined wall, her hands gripping a strange metal weapon. Xylar frowned. The weapon was crude, not as advanced as his own technology, yet she used it with precision. Her movements were erratic but effective, dodging, firing, retreating, and advancing again with astonishing speed. Xylar quickly realized he could not follow her with his sensors alone. He descended closer to the ground, careful to avoid detection. The human's senses were sharper than reports had suggested. He watched as squads of them moved across the battlefield, improvising at every turn. One group used a toppled vehicle as a shield, while another rolled barrels of fire toward enemy positions. Xylar noted this with interest. They adapt fast, he muttered to himself. Even as he spoke, a human soldier ducked behind a wall he hadn't seen, then leapt over it with incredible agility. He blinked. No other species in the Council had demonstrated this level of improvisation under fire. Xylar's observations became more complicated when he noticed the civilians. Unlike other species, humans did not retreat entirely from the battlefield. Farmers, engineers, and even children contributed in small ways. Some carried supplies, others helped build barricades, and a few threw simple explosives that seemed to have more effect than their size should allow. Xylar's sensors recorded everything, but he could not fully comprehend it. Humans were creative, resourceful, and fearless. The first major engagement came as the sun dipped toward the horizon. A group of human soldiers faced a larger enemy force. Xylar expected them to be quickly overwhelmed as logic dictated. Yet, the humans did not panic. Instead, they split into smaller groups using the terrain to their advantage. One soldier climbed a hill and rolled large stones downhill, crushing enemy machines. Another dug shallow trenches, hiding themselves from the more advanced weaponry. Xylar's analytical circuits struggled to keep up. "Why are they winning?" he whispered to no one. The humans were not only surviving, they were adapting faster than his calculations predicted. Every move they made seemed chaotic, but somehow every chaotic move fit into a larger, invisible strategy. As the battle intensified, Xylar's craft was nearly discovered. A soldier looked upward, pointing toward the sky, shouting in a language Xylar barely understood. He moved back, holding his breath as the human's eyes scanned the clouds. Then, after a tense moment, she turned back to the fight. Xylar realized something unsettling. Humans did not need to see him clearly to anticipate danger. Their intuition, their ability to predict, was far beyond any other species he had observed. Night fell, and the battlefield was illuminated by fires and flares. Xylar hovered in the shadows, recording the chaos. Humans moved with purpose in the dark, using signals, gestures, and light to communicate. Even in total darkness, they did not lose effectiveness. He compared it with other species' night tactics and found them laughably slow in comparison. During a lull in the fighting, Xylar approached a ruined building where a small group of humans had taken shelter. He expected fear, panic, maybe even despair. Instead, he saw planning. One of the soldiers, an older man with scars across his face, spoke in low tones. Others nodded, gesturing to sketches they had drawn in the dirt. Xylar's sensors translated fragments of their conversation, strategy, contingencies, and careful predictions of the enemy's next moves. For the first time, Xylar felt something unfamiliar. Respect. Not admiration exactly, but a deep, cautious awareness. These humans, despite their apparent fragility, were not to be underestimated. Hours later, Xylar observed a moment that would change his perception forever. A human medic dashed across open ground carrying a wounded soldier. Explosions erupted nearby. Yet the medic did not falter. When a second blast threw debris in all directions, he shielded the injured person with his own body. Xylar could not understand the courage, the sheer willingness to risk life for another. It defied all council logic. Xylar retreated to his craft to process the data. He had watched many species at war, yet humans were unlike any he had seen. They fought not because they were ordered to, not because they were programmed to, but because they chose to. They improvised, adapted, and protected each other with a unity he could not explain. As he reviewed the recordings, an alert flashed on his console. A larger human force was moving toward the settlement, and the skirmish was about to escalate. Xylar had a choice: remain a passive observer, or move closer to witness the action firsthand. Logic dictated caution, but curiosity and something like fear compelled him forward. He descended into the valley, weaving between hills and ruins. From this perspective, he saw the humans rally. Civilians joined soldiers, engineers rigged traps, and even children carried messages and supplies with incredible speed. The humans' coordination, though unstructured, worked perfectly. Every act seemed small, yet when combined, they became a force capable of facing overwhelming odds. Xylar's own race had never shown such resourcefulness. Their machines were stronger, their weapons more precise, yet humans used nothing more than imagination, courage, and sheer determination. He felt an unsettling thrill as he realized that if humans were ever fully united, no force in the galaxy could easily defeat them. The first major battle ended with humans holding the settlement. They were exhausted, but victorious. Xylar hovered above, recording their celebrations and the quiet tending of the wounded. Their joy was raw, their relief visible, but so was their readiness. Even in victory, they prepared for the next attack. As night deepened, Xylar recorded a final observation. The humans were not perfect. They made mistakes, lost lives, and suffered greatly. Yet they persisted, they adapted, they learned, they refused to yield. Xylar knew he would have to report this to the council. His initial report, written before the battle, had labeled humans as predictable, primitive, and a minor threat. Now, after witnessing just a single day of combat, he hesitated. How could he describe a species so unpredictable, so clever, so terrifying in their resilience? For the first time in his career, he felt fear, not for himself, but for the galaxy. Humans were dangerous, not because they had the strongest weapons, but because they could use anything, improvise, and survive against impossible odds. As he drifted above the quieted settlement, Xylar whispered to himself, "We were told to observe humans at war. Now I wish we had never come." The stars above shimmered silently, but below, humanity's fires burned bright. Xylar realized that his journey had only just begun. If this was only the start of the war, then what he had witnessed was only a glimpse of what humans could truly do. And deep inside, an unfamiliar sensation stirred: respect, awe, and a growing dread that humanity was far beyond anything the council had imagined. The sun rose over the settlement, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Xylar hovered quietly above, observing the humans who had survived the first battle. From a distance, they appeared exhausted, their movements slow and deliberate. Yet there was no despair. Even after losing comrades and enduring explosions that had torn apart homes, humans were already planning, repairing, and preparing for what was coming next. Xylar's 3 hearts beat faster than usual. He had seen other species recover from war, but humans did it differently. Their recovery was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and strangely organized. He scanned a group near a fallen structure and noticed them building a makeshift barricade using broken metal, wood, and even rocks from the surrounding hills. The barricade was crude, but effective. He realized that humans had an instinct for using every available resource, no matter how small. A young girl, no more than 10, carried a heavy sack of supplies across the field. Xylar's sensors confirmed it was almost twice her weight, yet she moved with determination. Soldiers cheered her silently from behind walls, acknowledging her efforts. Xylar recorded it all, feeling an unfamiliar curiosity. Humans did not rely on machines alone. They relied on each other, on courage, and on the clever use of even the simplest tools. By mid-morning, a report came through his interface. A larger enemy force was approaching, better equipped and more organized than the one from the previous day. Xylar's circuits calculated that the humans' survival odds were low. He expected panic, fear, or even retreat. Instead, he saw something he did not anticipate: planning. Soldiers moved through the streets, civilians carried supplies to hidden points, and engineers dismantled debris to create traps. Xylar watched as a group of humans worked together to rig a series of simple explosives along a narrow pass. The explosives were made from basic materials, metal, wires, and chemicals, but their placement was calculated to maximize the enemy's delay. He noted their calculations and precision. Every action had a purpose, yet it was fluid, adaptable, and responsive. Hours later, the first wave of the enemy arrived. Xylar expected the humans to crumble under superior firepower. But the humans did not wait for the enemy. They met them with tactics that seemed chaotic, yet worked perfectly. One squad fired from hidden positions, drawing attention, while another flanked the enemy, attacking from a direction they had not anticipated. Xylar's circuits struggled to predict the outcomes, and for the first time, he realized his models were useless against human creativity. In the chaos, Xylar noticed another remarkable trait. Humans adapted mid-battle. When one of their barricades failed, they quickly retreated and set up another, using debris from the destroyed wall. When one of their weapons jammed, soldiers improvised with rocks, sticks, or even parts of destroyed machines. Xylar's mind raced. No other species he had observed showed this level of immediate problem-solving under pressure. The enemy pressed harder, attempting to overrun the settlement. Explosions shook the ground and smoke filled the air. Civilians continued to help, some guiding injured soldiers to safety, others moving supplies, and a few even distracting the enemy to protect their homes. Xylar's sensors registered countless small acts of bravery. Each act seemed insignificant alone, yet together they formed a shield the enemy could not easily break. A young soldier, barely older than Xylar's own age in human terms, leapt onto a fallen enemy drone. With nothing but his strength and a few wires, he disabled it mid-air, sending it crashing into the ground. Xylar watched in disbelief. Such actions were reckless, yes, but highly effective. Humans combined courage with ingenuity in a way no other species did. By late afternoon, the battle reached a critical point. The enemy had managed to breach the outer defenses, and it seemed the humans would be overwhelmed. Xylar's circuits predicted defeat. Yet, in the midst of despair, humans acted with a unity he could not calculate. They created diversions, used the environment to their advantage, and coordinated attacks that seemed almost instinctive. From his vantage point, Xylar could see the larger picture. Humans were not just surviving, they were leading the enemy into traps, predicting their movements, and turning disadvantages into advantages. A simple hill became a strategic position. A narrow alley became a lethal corridor. Every human knew their role, yet each acted independently, improvising when needed. The final push came as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the battlefield. Humans used flares, mirrors, and even fire to confuse the enemy. Engineers had rigged a series of traps that detonated at just the right moments, sending shockwaves and debris into advancing forces. Soldiers fought with precision, dodging, attacking, and retreating fluidly. Xylar's sensors could not keep up. Every prediction he made was wrong. Amid the chaos, Xylar focused on a small group of civilians. They carried water, bandages, and even small explosives to aid soldiers. They ran through open ground, seemingly fearless, yet they moved with intelligence, staying out of the enemy's main path and timing their actions perfectly. Xylar recorded every moment, feeling a mix of awe and fear. Humans were not just resilient, they were dangerous in ways that could not be fully measured. Finally, the enemy began to retreat. The humans had survived, and not only survived, they had won. Xylar hovered above, recording the aftermath. Humans tended their wounded, celebrated quietly, and repaired damage even as the night approached. Their resilience was remarkable. Xylar could not understand it fully. Humans were weaker physically, their technology inferior in many ways, yet they had defeated a stronger, better-equipped enemy. Their courage, ingenuity, and unity had given them an edge no other species could match. Xylar's circuits struggled to process the data. Logic alone could not explain their success. As he descended to observe more closely, Xylar noticed something unexpected: laughter. Humans, despite their losses and the horrors they had witnessed, laughed. They joked, comforted one another, and even danced lightly around fires. It was not a reckless joy, it was a survival instinct, a way to maintain morale and hope. Xylar recorded it, noting that emotional intelligence played a role in their combat effectiveness. Night settled over the settlement. Fires burned, illuminating the human faces, each marked by exhaustion but also determination. Xylar floated above, silently observing. He had begun the day expecting chaos, destruction, and predictable behavior. Instead, he had witnessed creativity, courage, and collaboration on a scale no other species in the galaxy had demonstrated. For the first time, Xylar questioned his mission. He had been sent to observe humans at war, to report their weaknesses, to catalog their behavior. Yet he could not see weakness. What he saw was adaptability, intelligence, and a will to survive that defied logic. A group of soldiers gathered around a small fire, tending to their wounded and sharing supplies. Xylar's sensors picked up fragments of their conversation, planning for the next attack, sharing observations, and even joking about mistakes they had made. It was a level of communication, coordination, and emotional resilience that no model or calculation could predict. Xylar drifted higher, looking at the settlement as a whole. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and warriors united by a common purpose. Every small action contributed to a larger, cohesive strategy, and yet they were unpredictable. They did not follow patterns easily recognized by logic or technology. For hours, Xylar continued to watch. He recorded the humans reinforcing walls, teaching younger members new skills and preparing for the inevitable return of the enemy. Each act, no matter how small, added to the human strength. Xylar realized that human strength was not in individual power, it was in their collective intelligence, courage, and creativity. As he prepared to return to his craft for the night, Xylar felt a strange sensation. something close to fear. Humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving under conditions that would destroy most other species. If this was only the second day of the conflict, he wondered what they could accomplish in weeks, months, or years. Hovering in the quiet night sky, Xylar whispered to himself, "They are stronger than I thought. Far stronger. If the Council underestimates them, we may regret it." Below, the fires burned bright, marking the human settlement like stars fallen to the ground. Xylar watched them, fascinated and uneasy. Humanity's edge was not in their weapons, their numbers, or even their tactics. It was in their spirit. Their courage, their intelligence, and their ability to adapt made them a force unlike any other in the galaxy. And Xylar knew that his observations were only beginning. The humans had survived today, but the war was far from over. He could feel it in the air, in their determination, and in the way they moved, worked, and laughed despite the destruction surrounding them. One thing was certain: humanity was dangerous. Not in the way the Council had expected, but in a way that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Xylar's report would be difficult to write. How could he explain a species that defied logic, thrived in chaos, and drew strength from unity, courage, and creativity? The battle raged into the night. Fires burned across the landscape, illuminating the humans' tireless efforts. Xylar noticed how quickly they learned from each engagement, adapting strategies in real time. Where one plan failed, another rose immediately to take its place. The humans' ability to learn, adapt, and cooperate made them almost impossible to defeat. Finally, the enemy began to falter. Their forces were disorganized, trapped in narrow corridors, and slowed by the humans' clever tactics. Xylar's sensors could hardly process the scale of their ingenuity. Humans were turning what should have been a disaster into a stunning victory. Xylar descended closer to witness the aftermath. Soldiers tended the wounded, engineers repaired damage, and civilians cleared debris. There was no celebration, only calm determination. Humans were already preparing for the next attack, showing no signs of fear or despair. In a quiet moment, Xylar observed a small group of children playing near a fire. One of them accidentally tripped, spilling a small container of supplies. Instead of panic, others quickly helped, laughing softly. Xylar noted the resilience even in youth, the ability to continue living, learning, and growing despite war. The realization hit him fully. Humans were not just fighters, they were creators, thinkers, and survivors. Their ingenuity, emotional intelligence, and courage made them more dangerous than any weapon. Xylar understood why the Council had underestimated them. Humans could not be measured by numbers, firepower, or strategy charts. They were unpredictable, and unpredictability was their greatest weapon. As Xylar prepared to return to his craft, he noticed the enemy retreating completely. Humans had not only survived, they had dominated against overwhelming odds. He hovered in silence, recording the victory, but a sense of unease filled him. The human strength was not just in battle, it was in spirit, intelligence, and unity. If this was only the beginning, what could they achieve next? Xylar's circuits struggled to process the data. How could he explain a species that learned instantly, adapted continuously, and fought with courage that seemed limitless? He had come to observe humans at war, expecting to report weakness. Instead, he found strength, resilience, and brilliance beyond comprehension. As night fell completely, Xylar drifted above the settlement. Fires burned brightly below, marking the humans' perseverance. He whispered to himself, "We came to witness humans at war, and now I fear them." Xylar realized the true revelation. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, warriors, and thinkers capable of adapting to any challenge. They had turned chaos into strategy, fear into courage, and weakness into strength. Every small action contributed to a larger whole, and every human, from the youngest child to the oldest soldier, played a part. The council would need a new report, one that could not rely on logic, probabilities, or predictions. Humans could not be measured in the same way as other species. Xylar felt a strange mixture of awe and dread. The humans below had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome almost any obstacle. And Xylar knew this was only the beginning. Humanity would continue to fight, adapt, and grow stronger. If the galaxy underestimated them, it would be a mistake it might never recover from. Hovering silently, Xylar watched the humans tend the wounded, plan for the future, and care for one another. Their fires burned like stars fallen to earth, a symbol of resilience, courage, and determination. Xylar whispered one final thought before leaving the planet. Humans are not just strong, they are unstoppable in ways the galaxy has never seen. With that, Xylar ascended into the stars, carrying the knowledge that humanity was no longer just another species to observe. They were a force, alive with unpredictability, creativity, and unity. And for the first time, he feared that humanity might change the course of the entire galaxy. As the night deepened, Xylar realized that humans were not only survivors, they were unpredictable, clever, and unstoppable in ways no calculations could predict. And for the first time in his career, he feared what the humans might do next. The day dawned with a red glow that streaked across the horizon. Xylar hovered high above the human settlement, feeling the strange, heavy tension in the air. The previous battles had tested the humans' courage, but today was different. Reports indicated that the enemy was bringing their strongest forces yet, a massive strike that could overwhelm the settlement completely. Xylar's sensors calculated that the humans' chances were low, yet from his vantage point, he could already see preparations underway. Unlike before, the humans seemed calmer, almost confident. Civilians moved quickly, carrying supplies, reinforcing walls, and setting traps. Soldiers ran through drills, sharing information, and adapting strategies they had learned from the previous battles. Xylar adjusted his craft closer, curious and wary. He could see a young girl, barely 12, teaching a smaller child to carry water safely through dangerous paths. Nearby, an older soldier explained to a group of engineers how to reroute power from damaged equipment to make improvised weapons. Humans worked together with a harmony that defied logic. As the enemy approached, Xylar noticed something strange. The humans did not attack immediately, nor did they retreat. Instead, they lured the enemy into narrow passes, between hills, and toward traps laid carefully days before. Their actions were unpredictable, making it impossible for Xylar's systems to forecast their next moves accurately. The first wave of the enemy arrived with heavy machines and advanced weaponry. Xylar expected a brutal slaughter, but the humans moved with speed and intelligence. Soldiers and civilians coordinated perfectly. Engineers detonated traps at just the right moments, sending explosions that slowed the enemy's advance. Archways of fire blocked the machines, while humans moved unseen around them. Xylar could hardly believe his sensors. Every prediction failed. Humans adapted to every surprise. When one of their barricades collapsed, they improvised another in seconds. When a weapon jammed, they found alternative tools or redirected enemy attention. Humans turned chaos into order with a kind of instinctive brilliance. During the battle, Xylar observed an extraordinary moment. A soldier spotted a group of enemy machines advancing toward a civilian area. He shouted instructions, and a group of engineers quickly modified old vehicles, turning them into mobile barricades. The civilians pushed them into place, creating a barrier that stopped the enemy cold. Xylar recorded it in awe. No other species he had observed could combine courage, intelligence, and teamwork so seamlessly under pressure. Hours passed, and the battle intensified. The humans were exhausted, yet they never lost focus. One squad, pinned down by superior firepower, used smoke, mirrors, and sound to confuse the enemy. Another team carried supplies and ammunition across dangerous zones, keeping the soldiers supplied. Xylar watched as children ran messages between units. Small acts that ensured the humans remained coordinated. The enemy tried to regroup and launch a second strike, stronger and more organized. Xylar's calculations predicted certain human defeat. Yet the humans acted in ways no model could predict. They anticipated the enemy's maneuvers, creating diversions, flanking attacks, and traps that worked together like a single living organism. Xylar hovered, recording every detail. He could feel something growing within him, a mixture of respect, awe, and fear. Humans were not just clever, they were unpredictable in a way that machines, strategies, and simulations could never replicate. Their strength lay not in raw power, but in creativity, unity, and the will to survive. As the battle reached its peak, Xylar noticed the enemy shifting tactics. They began targeting the observation posts, aiming to disrupt communication and coordination. Xylar's craft remained hidden, but his sensors detected humans noticing the threat. They didn't panic. Instead, soldiers and engineers quickly set up decoys, using simple but effective devices to mislead the enemy. Xylar realized humans were not just reactive, they were proactive. They studied the enemy, anticipated moves, and used the environment to their advantage. He had witnessed adaptation before, but never on this scale. It was as if humans were thinking several steps ahead, and yet their actions were spontaneous, instinctive, and creative. By evening, the enemy had begun a final push, concentrating all their forces toward the settlement's center. Xylar's sensors predicted total annihilation of human resistance, yet what he saw next defied logic. Humans, working together, created a complex network of traps, flanking attacks, and diversions that slowed the enemy and forced them into narrow corridors where their numbers became a disadvantage. A young medic, carrying a wounded soldier, moved through the chaos fearlessly, dodging explosions and debris. Soldiers covered him, civilians guided him, and even children helped clear the path. Xylar recorded everything, realizing the humans' unity was their most powerful weapon. They fought not for glory or orders. They fought for each other, for their families, and for their home.